The following program is brought to you by PodcastOne Sportsnet.
This episode of the Steve Austin Show is sponsored in part by DDP Yoga. Working hundreds of matches over the years, it ain't no surprise that my body's taking its share of bumps and bruises. And my buddy Diamond Dallas Page knows all about the wear and tear the ring takes on your body. And his DDP Yoga fitness system was specifically designed to burn fat, reduce pain, and heal up from injuries. Dallas is so positive that you'll absolutely love the DDPY program and using the DDPY app that he's doing something he ain't ever done before. He's going to give you 7 days free to try it out. That's a week to try this program. Explore the app and own your life, and it's completely free. Now listen, DDP Yoga can work for all ages, weights, and fitness levels. It's a kick-ass cardio workout that will dramatically increase your flexibility and strengthen your core like never before, all with minimal joint impact. Just for listeners of the Steve Austin Show, you can save 20% off an annual membership for the DDP Yoga Now app of any DVD pack. Just go to ddpyoga.com/Austin to get started. And hey, check this out. Dallas will be at the Motor City Comic-Con in Novi, Michigan. He'll be appearing all 3 days, Friday through Sunday, May 18th, 19th, and 20th. Come down, get an autograph, take a picture, meet and interact with Dallas at the Motor City Comic-Con. You can get details and ticket info at MotorCityComicCon.com.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production. From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah. Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the mean streets of Los Angeles, California today. Got a damn good show for you today. I ended up watching, finally, the WWE pay-per-view Backlash, which just happened this past Sunday, and I called down Wade Keller from Pro Wrestling Torch to shoot the breeze and talk with him about this illustrious event, talk about the matches, shoot the breeze about the business of pro wrestling, and we talked for about an hour and a half. So since we talked for about an hour and a half, I'm going to keep the opening of this podcast short and just go ahead and roll sound as we break down this event, talked about what we liked, some of the things we didn't like, a couple of critiques, and overall, our views of what we saw and felt during this pay-per-view on the WWE Network. Shout out to all the superstars. Everybody worked their ass off. Before we get to Wade, let me remind you that it's a special time of year. This time of year brings us two things: graduations and Father's Day, and the gifts that go along with them. Before you buy Dad another tie or that grad a balloon that will probably float away, ask yourself this: does my dad or grad like wings or sports? Or better yet, both. If the answer is yes, then get them a Buffalo Wild Wings gift card. Right now, if you purchase $30 worth or more in store or online, they'll give you a $5 bonus to keep for yourself. That's a gift that gives back. You just might be the most generous SOB on the planet. Buffalo Wild Wings. Wings, beer, sports. Terms and conditions apply.
Hello, guys. It's MMA fighter Chael Sonnen. Check out my podcast, You're Welcome, with Chael Sonnen every Wednesday and Friday right here at PodcastOne. We cover the latest in mixed martial arts and everything else going on in the world of sport. Listen free to You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen, exclusively available on Apple Podcasts, at PodcastOne.com, and on the Podcast One app. If you love the show, share it with a friend and leave us a rating and review.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
All right, here we go. I'm rolling this out at 317 Gimmick Street. I got Wade Keller, Pro Wrestling Torch, on the other end of the line. Wade, I was looking at my contacts on Skype. It seems like it's been over 10 months since we talked. What happened? Where was the disconnect? Where did we go wrong? What happened?
I think it was something I said. I've been wondering about it the whole time, and I've talked to my therapist about it, and I couldn't come up with anything. I saw the same thing, although I actually think we had done a show since then by phone, not by Skype, like where I was on the phone for some reason. I don't think it's been quite 10 months.
Yeah, and actually I think I called you a couple of times to see if you wanted to do a show, but I never left a message, and you were kayfabing me. So then I said, oh, well, I'll just do another show without Wade. And so anyway, I was sitting there scratching around. I said, man, the pay-per-view just happened. I don't know what everybody else was thinking about Backlash. It took me like 5 days to watch the show. show. And I finally watched it. I was sitting there with my thumb.
And you started. That was in real time.
Yeah. I was just like, anyway, I said, you know what? It's been a while since we talked about anything in general, or pro wrestling or sports entertainment specifically. So I figured, you know what? Let me reach out to Wade and see what's up in his world and see what's going on. And it turns out, I said, hey, man, you want to do a podcast? And Wade texts back, well, yeah, I do. I'm working on mine for 15 more minutes, but I also have the lawn guys out here, and they're creating so much noise that maybe we should wait a while. Dude, welcome to my world. I got a 15-pound dog barking next door. My dog Callie's going to come barging in any moment, at any time. I've got Harleys, helicopters, ambulances, sirens. The whole scene of L.A. is in my podcast. So finally, I'm glad to hear that you, as professional as you are, have had some discombobulation with the sound quality.
I'm sure my dog will make an appearance too.
Yeah, well, that's good. Dogs are welcome on this show, and hey, it's a free download. So Jesus Christ, what more could you ask for?
That's true. Yes.
Hey, man, before we start getting cranked up, hey, where can people find your show and find out wherever you're at on social media and your podcast?
Cool. Yeah. The PodcastOne show has been going great for nearly a year now. I guess we're about 10 months in. And just search Wade Keller in Apple Podcasts or on the PodcastOne app or just about anywhere else you listen to podcasts on Beyond Pod or Dogcatcher or Downcast, wherever it is you listen to wrestling podcasts. Just search Wade Keller. But there's two logos. There's a red one and a blue one. Subscribe to both, and then you'll get all 4 shows. We do a post-Raw show, a post-SmackDown show. We're live with callers after those. And then we talk to on-site correspondents, which is really cool. People who are in the building tell us what didn't air, what the crowd chants were, what was the dark match, what happened after cameras stopped rolling. And then we got our PodcastOne flagship on where we talk about a broad array of topics, WWE and otherwise. And then Interview Friday, which, by the way, this week is Mick Foley, part 1 of 2. A really good conversation with Mick. We were texting each other afterwards going, that was really good. We talked on a lot of cool stuff. So download the show and subscribe. And then follow me on Twitter at The Wade Keller and follow my brand at PW Torch.
Man, see, I'm calling this on the ring. That was off the fly. I jump-started this podcast. Normally, you got to wait like a 30-minute segments for Wade to do like his 5-minute spiel. He summed that all up very succinctly, and it gave us a bunch of things to launch off and talk about. Let's talk a little bit about Backlash, Wade, because I just got finished watching the event. I just got finished watching Samoa Joe and Roman Reigns in the main event. So you said that you got guys there on site while everything's going on. What's your take on, well, let's kind of go like loosely match by match over the pay-per-view and what your thoughts or grades or whatever were. But so what was the word on the street just as far as the vibe in the building at this illustrious event?
This is a really puzzling match and a somewhat puzzling event. I think I had high expectations going into it. In my preview podcast that I did, I was like, this looks like a really good show on paper. I don't think it can go wrong. And I thought it went wrong. It wasn't like, I think it was too long. And the opener with Seth and Miz was great. We'll talk about that. And there were some other good moments, but this main event, it started around the time the pay-per-views normally end. They're on the East Coast, in New Jersey. And the match went 18 minutes and it started off red hot. And then it just settled down into something resembling like a mid-90s house show match in the middle of the card in terms of kind of the pace and the fans. And there's little video clips online of this. Fans were getting up and walking out. There was a chant of "Beat the Traffic" going on in your main event with Samoa freaking Joe against Reigns, who could tear down the house. And fans were, there's video that people panned the whole lower bowl, and there was a steady stream of people leaving during the match. People were mad. They were mad about the AJ Nakamura finish. They were mad that a non-title Roman Reigns match was headlining, just it's that kind of crowd in that building, especially. It was an ornery crowd, and I'm not quite sure the strategy that was executed in terms of long rest holds in a match that started red hot. I'm curious for your theory and your take on it.
With respect to the main event or the entire card?
Yeah, well, mostly the main event at this point, like Joe and Reigns. They started red hot, and then they really settled into some long chin locks from Joe, and you could tell the crowd was getting restless. And I remember going to a house show back in the late 80s, and Terry Taylor settled into a headlock in like match number 3, and the crowd was taunting him, and he just looked at him and said, "I'm staying in this headlock till you guys shut up." I wasn't sure what was going on in that match, but it sort of felt like that moment at times.
Well, and that's straight up Terry Taylor, old school. He's going to grab hold until you get involved in some way, whether it's heading for the door or start getting involved in a match. And that's just old school psychology. Here, Joe is, everybody knows, one of my favorite workers. Roman Reigns is a fine worker. And it just seems like, whether he can connect with the fans or not. And, Joe goes out there. Here comes Roman Reigns. And I like the aggressive nature of Joe in the beginning. And then, he takes him through a couple of tables and then, throws him inside the ring. There's a sense of urgency there as he goes for the cover, which sometimes Joe doesn't do a lot of times when he's putting in even longer periods of time and longer matches with other federations. And Joe's a masterful worker, but he showed a sense of urgency. And then all of a sudden, before that rear chin lock, and the rear chin lock didn't bother me, but the one hold, it was kind of that gimmick hold where he kind of had him by the top of his head and by his jaw. And that looked not that great, not that punishing. He was kind of narrating about, whatever you feel this or whatever he was talking about. I wasn't a big fan of that hold. And then the rear chin lock, they did a couple of interesting sequences, out of that submission into, Roman coming on top, then Joe getting back on top. And there was some good stuff in that match. I thought the match was better than people thought it was, but just for some reason, like you said, maybe they started late or whatever. Yeah, just mechanically, the match was fine. But for some reason, I don't know, the people either weren't really into it or kind of rejected it. I don't know how to explain it. At this point of the game, we'll go ahead, jump in there.
I think that it's both match placement and context. Like, that's a big part of what makes a match work, is where it is on the show and what happened before it and what fans' expectations were. And so you have this movement among I think the people who pay the most money for the WWE product and feel rightfully so entitled to express their opinion about it, who are loudly and vociferously rejecting Roman Reigns in the way that he's cast. I think they would embrace him as a heel. I really do. I'm not of the camp who thinks they're just not going to like him no matter what. But they don't connect with him as a babyface, and they certainly don't buy this storyline that has been on television, which is Roman making the case that management is out to get him. Because the fans in this crowd are savvy enough and watch the product closely enough to know he's getting title shots, that like a title rematch against Brock after losing clean, and Paul Heyman did his best to explain it on Raw, but it doesn't hold up to scrutiny. And then this idea that, well, Vince is out to get me and Vince is a Lesnar guy. I just think the storyline isn't doing Roman any favors. And then the placement of this match. And again, I don't know what match goes on last, because AJ Nakamura should have, but you can't end a show with that finish. So I think they were in a bit of a dilemma in that sense. But the fans didn't want a non-title match with Roman Reigns headlining starting at 11 p.m. on a long show that's been a letdown since the opener, in the midst of a storyline that says Roman is being sabotaged by Vince and Vince doesn't like him, because people know Vince decides what match goes on last. So I think a lot was working against it. And you're right. I think the crowd rejected a match that they otherwise would have been more accepting of. But I do think when you think of Joe and Reigns and the way they cut promos building this up, even in the midst of the Saudi Arabia hype, fans wanted to see just a badass brawl, not Joe making good facial expressions and really sinking in the holds and doing some trash talking. But I don't think that's what they were looking for. And certainly we had moments. I mean, the flying elbow through the ropes onto Roman and Roman crashing into the boards was great, but there just wasn't enough of it, and it was too late in the show.
Man, I thought, hindsight being 20/20 and just watching the match, the way the fans kind of, a little bit of a hot start at the beginning, well, more of Joe on offense, but this was maybe, hey, you jump this thing and it's tit for tat, and you rock them with some solid high spots, back and forth, and then, a guy, with a slam, move on the elbow, other guy, it's just, you give them 3 to 5 minutes of some, some sizzle, then settle into that grind, then start putting Roman through those tables, and just make sure you grab them in the beginning. But, obviously, when you're talking about this match, early on in the day and you're setting it up, you figure, okay, this is a good plan, we'll stick to it. And then all of a sudden, the people are just not quite as involved or as engaged as you would want them to be. And, when you've got a guy in Roman's position who's on top, and, people are making a case, or from what I've read, from what I follow, and you can speak more to this than I can, and people say you've got to turn Roman heel. Other people say, well, he's already a heel, and that's not necessary. But when you've got a guy, like Joe, very aggressive, and, he's a heel, But he's got Roman in these holes, and Roman has really not endeared himself to, or the people are not that enamored with Roman, to get behind him while he's in those holes, to come behind him and get with the match and start cheering him out of it and being engaged in that match. So I think it was almost, Roman can work his ass off. Roman's a good worker. Joe's a better worker, but Roman can damn sure work. I think it almost reminded me in a sense, not from a physicality standpoint, but many times when I worked with The Undertaker, because you had these two badasses in the ring, and I was the babyface 9 out of 10 times, the crowd could tend to be a little hard just because I wasn't a sympathy babyface, and Undertaker was such a revered figure. I mean, just the way we tied up, as much as I like Undertaker on a personal level, sometimes, in the ring, our chemistry didn't click enough to just get everybody in that arena engaged. Do you follow what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally. And I mean, how much do you, as a wrestler, take into consideration or even augment or adjust what you plan based on where you are on the card? And do you pay attention either to what's scheduled before you or right after you, which didn't happen to you later in your career too often, but what happens before you? And then do you adjust even during the show to how the crowd is responding? Because to me, like Joe Reigns, maybe you can justify it until you get a sense of the crowd in the hour leading up to the match. And at that point, I think you go, we're at 11 o'clock. I think we cut this 18 minutes, down to, and they had the brawl before the bell, but bell to bell, they did about 18 minutes. Maybe cut that down to 11 and just give us the best of and get in and out because it's going to be trouble. Like, do you ever make a match longer or shorter, or adjust the pace of it based on the crowd that night?
No, normally on a pay-per-view, because that's such a big event, you really don't have time for that, and you figure what you got's going to work. So I'm just saying, hey man, I would think it was going to be a long night. I'm going to jump this thing from the get-go anyway, just based on what I'm bringing to the table, what you're bringing to the table with respect to Joe and Roman. But no, that's very rare that you would change that. And if anything, when you got them when they never really had them, and it's time to go home, there's always a case to be made for going short. But if you go too long, and I don't know, this match just didn't pan out. But I'm glad you brought up the point that you did when Joe jumped on Roman, and then they've got that rule. Back in the day, if there was a guy that attacked the other guy, they'd go ahead and ring the bell, and the match would start. Do you remember that?
Oh, totally, yeah.
Okay, well, I think, this has been going on, the way they run the show now, both guys got to be in the corner, and, Joe beat the hell out of Roman, and then, referee's asking him, okay, after the melee has settled enough, and Joe's in cell mode. So, they officially start the match. And of course, Roman is on the receiving end, and it's a beatdown, and then Joe's on top, and it's just like, man, you start off with a vicious beatdown, but then you got to wait for the referee to start the match, and then Roman's already selling, and it's just like, man, you could have had him, but with the referee having to really officially start the match, it's almost a comma or too many periods there where it's like, dude, you could have had us, but with that delay and that official start, not so much. You see?
I do, and I'm a stickler by default for logic in the idea that if a heel attacks a babyface when their back is turned before ring introductions, that they get to have that advantage. And the ref just says ring the bell. That did drive me nuts. But so I like conceptually, academically, the idea that you don't reward a heel for attacking a babyface before the bell, because that just seems ludicrous. That said, you've got to make sure that if you have that pause where are you okay, that you take into account. And this is a lesson that can be learned in terms of, okay, we've got this policy, it's a sound policy, but it backfired on us a little bit here. When the bell rings, then we need Joe to just go and continue, get the crowd hot again before we settle in. Because, this was a match that had some good spots in it. Joe and Reigns giving us a sample, like the drive-by spot where Joe grabbed him out of midair and just dragged him into the ring after catching him in midair. That's a cool spot. But they lost the crowd by then. The crowd had already been chanting, "This is boring" by that point. Rusev Day. And then I don't think they had beat the traffic yet. But, if you lose, that's the thing. If you lose the crowd, you can do good stuff. But it's late and it's a New York crowd and you've lost them now and you can do good stuff and they won't come back. And they could have had the crowd, I think, if this was the middle of the show and they got to it a little quicker after the bell and shortened the match. But yeah, it's one of those things where you got good spots, they look good on paper, and then you put it out there under those circumstances. And I thought it was, I won't call it a disaster of an ending, but I think everybody was leaving their couch or the arena feeling like that wasn't the show they hoped it was.
So, what did you think about the finish? It seemed like there was a spear earlier in the night. Was that Charlotte on Carmella? But it just seems like there's so many spears going on now. And I know that is, I guess, Roman's finish, along with the Superman punch. I'm not about the Superman punch. Jeez. I wasn't gangbusters about the finish. Spear out of the blue. Joe had kind of been in control. And then this is the one that takes him out after everybody's kind of been pushing the envelope for so long, with kicking out of everything. And then, spear out of nowhere, and it's over. 1, 2, 3. Did it hurt Joe? No. But was it a great win for Roman? No, either. So what were your thoughts on the finish?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't work. I mean, you had Joe going head first into the turnbuckle when Roman moved, and then just, Roman pops with the spear. It's kind of a go-to finish, like let's just surprise him out of nowhere. It kind of in a general sense, there was a guy dressed up as Ultimate Warrior in the front row who loved the finish, by the way. It cut to him. But most of the fans were getting up to leave, like the building. It didn't work in that sense. Like if a match finish works, if you get the reaction that you want, and it's not people standing up disgustedly and walking away or, not really reacting. I think it was good to just get out of the match, but the spear, especially when it comes to Reigns, and the spear and the Superman punch are so overdone. I think it's part of the fabric of what makes people reject Reigns. It's the sense that there's a few buttons on the video game controller that he goes to too often. And when you finish with that, almost like you got a power surge in a video game, it plays into part of what I think people don't like about Roman. But I think I think it was a lost cause before that. But I know what you're saying about over relying on that.
So then what do you do with Roman Reigns at this point? Because, man, you've been doing this for, over 20 years. So in your mind, what do you do with Roman Reigns?
It is. I mean,
okay. If you really want him to get over higher than he is, which I think there is definitely a level higher than he is.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first, I think, and I mean, it seems like most people agree that they should have turned him heel by now, and then they'd be in a good place today. And they turned him back when it first seemed like a good idea. I still think a heel run will work. I think and it might work so well that they never turn him back. Now, this is what conflicts with that, is you have this TV deal they're negotiating. You're wanting to position yourself not only financially on the books, but as a company that looks like, hey, we've got this 6'3", handsome, long-haired lead protagonist who the women swoon for and the kids love and buy merchandise for and idolize. And he's related to The Rock, and he's got this wrestling pedigree, and he's scandal-free for the most part. Nothing big, no big mark on his record, where a suitor who might pay crazy money to buy WWE would shy away from. They've got a good guy in that sense. He shows up for work. He's professional. He's a family man. It's like you can see Vince looking at all that going, I got to just grit my teeth through the guys who attend these shows and boo, because there's so much about Roman that works for the larger purpose. Because I am not convinced that Vince's number one goal is to satisfy his fans. And I know that sounds weird to say it, but I think he's in a mode where the number one goal is to satisfy Wall Street, TV executives, and potential suitors who might overpay for the company, overpay, but who would pay huge money like UFC got. And I think that's on his mind so much he's losing sight of how much damage he's doing by continuing to push Roman in this circumstances where the optics are terrible. I mean, what do you think if you're a TV executive or a potential suitor to the company, you tune into the network and you watch your lead babyface getting rejected by your fan base? You start to think maybe this Vince McMahon doesn't know what he's doing, or maybe this fan base is hard to please and maybe we don't want to get in this business, or I don't know. So I get Vince's rationalization and determination, but I am concerned that it's going to backfire more than he is realizing if that core fan base that's propping up, that's making the TV deal possible, and that's filling these Raw and SmackDown and pay-per-view arenas with passionate fans, I think he's taking them for granted. And so to get Roman over, I think you have to take all of that into account And I think once the fans feel they've been listened to, then, and I know WWE doesn't want to give up this kind of control to the fans, but I think once the fans feel they've been listened to, they'll be more open to something else with Roman. But I think a repackaging to some degree would really help. Changing the Shield gear, new entrance music, and part of it is on Roman and the people producing him to have him be a little more accessible, where he's connecting with the crowd a little more. It feels to me, and I think you can speak to this, Steve, like you can't have a wall up between you and the audience. And I feel like Roman sort of is walking into a workplace that he's prepared for it to be hostile. And I think the fans sense it and it feeds on it. And I think you have to break that cycle. But to me, you unleash that cycle by turning him heel and and don't do anything that he can't come back from, but have him let loose. And I think the fans would respect Reigns if he didn't seem to be keeping it all in. And then they've got good babyface opponents for Reigns to face for a while and then reassess in a year and a half. So, I mean, that's the long and short of it, I guess, at this point. But I mean, it's not an easy puzzle to solve, but I think a heel turn is a gimme that it would be better at this point. And they've got plenty of babyfaces to fill those spots.
Yeah, and I can see what you're talking about from the corporate standpoint of, hey, man, it's my lead babyface. But, on the other side of that, like I said, well, he's not being accepted 100% by the audience. Back in the day, I would say 4 or 5 years ago, man, they need to turn Cena heel. Well, obviously, don't turn Cena heel. I mean, he's beloved by the kids. He does all the Make-A-Wish stuff. And, never turn him heel. With Roman, I said it a couple of years ago, and I still believe it to this day. For him to have the biggest run possible, and there's still work to be done on his end. It's not just, hey, turn him heel and it's going to work. You got to turn him heel, and then he has to perform and just let loose. Just like you just said. I mean, he just needs to be aggressive. Just go out there. Hey, man, this is what you wanted. This is what you get. Motherfuckers are going to pay now, as far as with respect to what happens in that ring.
Yeah.
What you asked for it, you got it. And I don't need none of your damn support. And that's just maybe a bad analogy or a bad, string. But, when I start thinking about it, I get fired up. But he just needs to bring a mean streak, go through a total heel run. And, dude, it's just like The Rock. I mean, I don't care if they're related or not. It's just a very similar situation. Rock came in, white meat baby. People just crapped all over him. He turned heel. People hated him. And then all of a sudden he, turned up that charisma and that magic that he had and just became one of the most beloved over baby faces in the history of the business. Now, can Roman do that? I don't know, because that's yet to be seen. Does he have that type of potential? Does he have that ceiling that The Rock had? Right now, he's below that ceiling. So give him that heel run, and then, however long that lasts, hey, if it's successful, keep running people through him, or him running through people, as a heel. And then organically, when it's time to turn him. At the very least, I think it'd be, I don't know. I go back, someone just sent me a match from early 90s, somewhere in South Georgia. I was working a house show. It was myself, Rick Rude, and Brian Pillman against Sting, Ricky Steamboat, and Too Cold Scorpio. And God dang, somebody had this little camcorder in the crowd because it was a house show. And they did an excellent job of recording this match. And I walk over there and I'm talking shit to this guy. The guy's calling me a pussy. I mean, it was awesome. But when you can go out there and mess with those people and get them engaged and involved like that, and we were having so much fun, I always liked working heel, turn into a monster baby. I'm sure Roman likes being liked, but I think he'd make a great heel.
How's that working for him?
I really think I think Roman would make a great heel, and then when it's time to turn him back, you turn him back. But I still believe the dude's got to have a total heel run, and I think he could pull it off. And it'd be interesting to see what happens from there. But, Vince has the big picture. Vince has always figured out everything. The WWE Network's kicking ass. Just as a fan, it's like, come on, dude. I like Roman Reigns. I barely know the kid, but I like him. And I want everybody to do good in the business of pro wrestling and have a great run. I think he will have his greatest run if he's, and I've been saying this for years, turn the summit heel, let him rock and roll, and then see what happens.
And that's exactly what I think even fans booing him are excited to see, is Reigns letting loose. Reigns just completely like connecting in a way that his current character can't and isn't allowed to. And it's not even a territory he's able to approach at this point. And what if that just unleashes in Reigns a connection with the crowd that then translates eventually to a babyface? I don't think he gets there without that step. I mean, I think the ceiling is a lot lower for him as a lead babyface if you don't let him have a run as a heel first.
And I think when you watch him as a baby, I give him all the props in the world. He's a fine worker. He can do everything mechanically. When you have a volume knob and you can turn from 1 to 10, it seems like he can go from about 1 to 8 as a baby, and then it stops. And then there's that kind of, maybe there's that invisible wall there, or whatever is that defense mechanism that kicks in, or I need to see him go 2 more notches to 10. I think as a heel, he can turn that knob all the way to 10, get off, go crazy, whatever it is to express himself, to truly express himself. Because if you look at some of my most, good shit back in the day, I mean, it's kicking ropes, pulling ropes, just facial, dude, I'm on a 12. And to me, that's just part of making that connection with the crowd. And it started as a heel, then turned as a baby, and it took me all the way up to a level 14. So anyway, I'll get off these crazy numbers because I don't know if they make sense to everybody.
It does. It makes sense.
Dude, I'm totally, man. He just needs, I think he would be in his element. And, it's really interesting because I've had this conversation with so many guys in the business, and we'll come to a classic case a little bit further in the discussion, and we'll get off of this now so we can move on. But, dude, you've got to find some way to connect with that audience, and, whether it's love, hate, this, that, or whatever, but you've got to be able to turn it all the way up at certain times. And let's go to the AJ Styles versus Shinsuke Nakamura match, because I really like this match.
Yeah.
And I liked it a lot. And I was actually critical of some of the low blows that Shinsuke was hitting AJ with, because I thought, okay, if you do too many, it's going to become a cliche. And then if you do too many, it's also going to make AJ look dumb. And I still believe that to be true, depending on how they play this. So this was a no DQ match, correct?
Yes.
So, okay, Shinsuke comes with a low blow, but AJ returns fire. So good on AJ, right? Because if he's going to stoop to that level, AJ is as good of a man as he is, and as a straight shooter as he is, but he's going to give it back to you because he's a tough-ass competitor, right? And then, all the stuff during the match, Shinsuke, his mannerisms as a heel are tremendous. He has that flamboyant character. Very dismissive with the crowd, great body language. Just that one just big kick to the head of AJ. He just does some really good stuff as a heel. I like him way more as a heel than I do as a baby. And then the finish that everybody, and I'm going to put this out there and then you can respond, because I don't think you like the finish. I was talking about too many ball shots. Dude, when they did that double kick and they did a double down, I popped big. Because, I don't know what the WWE Universe thought about it, but for this match, and I haven't seen Raw, and I haven't seen SmackDown, that finish I was okay with, because now I want to see where they're going from here. But I wasn't mad at the finish, because I thought it was a very physical match. It was a different paced match. It was a different kind of moveset and sequence-wise, psychology-wise. So to me, I love the match. And I really enjoyed the finish because I want to see where they go. Now that you've seen Raw and SmackDown, tell me where they're going and jump in it. And first of all, tell me what you thought about the finish and how much you probably didn't like it, or your audience didn't like it.
Well, see, that's the thing is I agree with everything you said. I think it was a really good match. But my judgment on the finish was looking at the first 8 rows of fans who were in the camera shot when the ref called off the match and called for the bell.
I hated it.
Yeah, they stood up with their arms out going, what? Yep. And then they're all standing there. I mean, it was serious. It was like Hillary Clinton on election night at her headquarters. It was, are you kidding me? No way. They wanted more. And I think the idea of it being a no DQ match is there's an expectation that, oh, good, we're going to finally get to settle this. So the bar is even higher in terms of fans are like, okay, no DQ. That means they're going to fight till there's a finish. So it took the wind out of the sails. It's a credit to AJ and Shinsuke that fans wanted this match to continue.
Yes, absolutely. They wanted it to continue.
Yes, and they want, so it felt like a flat finish. I think the fans are going, So now it's Roman Reigns time. That's the finish we get. Now it's Roman Reigns time too. Like, I think even that's in the back of their mind, the kind of the haze of Reigns finishing the show. So I think the savvy fans, once we're buying the front row tickets, although I think it went to the last row too, in terms of the crowd reaction, they're thinking this match should have been last. And now we got to see the middle chapter of something. And we wanted to see something that felt, more like a finisher, forwarding storyline. So, I mean, they're on SmackDown. There wasn't a ton, but both AJ and Shinsuke just talked in backstage interviews, and Shinsuke pretended he doesn't speak English, which is hilarious. He's awesome. He is entertaining. He answered a question. Me, no, speak English. Like, it's like he had this dramatic pause, and Renee's rolling her eyes, and she's frustrated. But the problem is the crowd's laughing. Like, they enjoy the hell out of that bit. So I think they got to kind of figure out where the cute, funny Shinsuke should stop, and they should move to It
needs to stop now, man. They were talking about the King of Strong Style, and it's not something you put on a T-shirt. That's who and what this guy is. And this is what I was saying from way back in the day when he debuted, what was it, down there in Dallas, wherever it was, against Sami Zayn in a really, really good 50-50 match. And I got some really good things to say about Sami Zayn, but I thought Shinsuke should have took 70% of that match. At least 60. It was a 50-50 match. They tried to make Shinsuke that quirky baby face. He has all this charisma. He's like Michael Jackson, Freddie Mercury, this rock star kind of guy from Strong Style, very charismatic from Japan, and tried to humanize him or make him whatever. The people kind of these quirky things fall in love with him. Hey man, now as a heel, dude, when you say that you don't speak English, just say that you don't speak English and make it short and to the point, and then make Renee uncomfortable, and then the interview over. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Well, in like playing into even the comedy aspect of it. And again, like, I think there's a way to make this work for Shinsuke's heel act, but Renee closed by saying, "Do you have anything to say about Styles?" And this on SmackDown on Tuesday, and he looks at her and he goes, and I can't imitate Nakamura perfectly. I'm not trying, but he goes, "AJ Styles nuts, but we are not finished." So he's play on words on the low blows. And
right.
Is Nakamura being like ultra clever with funny lines that the writers come up with? Is that what's best for this scenario if the fans are kind of laughing with him and think he's clever? And I think they're still figuring it out in that sense. I think Nakamura is too. Because, I mean, you do want it. You can't just be a heel with heat. It's a TV industry. You got to be entertaining too. So it's finding out what that is. But, I mean, AJ said he didn't want to, like, his promo was, I had to stoop to Shinsuke's level, but that's not the way that I want to fight. And he said, I'm going to prove to him, and it implied there'd be another match that I'll prove to him this is the house that AJ Styles built. We're not done yet. So I think it's unfinished business, but I'm curious, how do they follow up on this? Like, you've done no DQ. And so do you have a stipulation where, like, Nakamura won't do a low blow because, the page puts two referees at ringside, one in the ring. If there's a low blow, Nakamura is suspended for a year. Like, you just create some scenario where now AJ gets his match, which is, a no low blow match, or you're banished from the company. I don't know. Like, how do you follow up a no DQ match that ends with an inconclusive finish where there has to be a rematch?
I agree with you on that, but just as far as like match placement, yeah, I'm with you. I would have put this match on last, and then I would have ended with that same finish if that's okay, because that's the finish they called, so let's go with that finish. Dude, I mean, you make the out on the show, the end of the pay-per-view, God, I can't believe it. Never in the history of WWE has this happened. I mean, then go off the air almost like Bill Watts and Mid-South Wrestling used to do, every other week whenever there's barn burner in the ring, and all of a sudden this thing happens. Have Kevin Dunn start counting them down and go off. Mm-hmm. Just get off the air. But yeah, I could see people, everybody stood up and they held their arms up like, what the huff? Really? Yeah. Are you kidding me? This is the finish. Yeah. And that's a big reason why I popped so hard for it. I've seen a lot of shit. So have you. And so all of a sudden, when I see people react like that, it turns me on because, it might have pissed them off. But to me, and to your point, you got to be careful how you book this next match, because after you've gone here, how do you keep them from going there again and, making a short match or making this be, the Achilles tendon of the match. But I enjoyed the match. It was great pacing, different kind of pacing. I love those Pele kicks by AJ when he does those things, they're just beautiful. His timing is unbelievable. Shinsuke's mannerisms, just his body language, the way he took control when he did. I really enjoyed the match. I would do something a little bit I wouldn't do a whole lot with Shinsuke, but I'd knock off the comedy because I don't think he needs that to be entertaining. If Renee asks him a question and he just sits there and just looks at the camera, because he's not going to answer the camera, to me, I think, after a period of silence, hey man, you just fade out and go to the next match and let Michael Cole and those guys pick it up. Hey man, this guy, I think he's going to talk when he wants to and not talk when he doesn't want to. And so that way you can get off of him, leave something to talk about, still be entertaining, and not put him in a comedic light, because as a King of Strong Style, that's a statement. It's like the monster among men, King of Strong Style, the phenomenal one. You have your trademark gimmick. So don't fuck with that with the kid, man.
Well, and even just Renee Young is utterly likable. I mean, she's just sweet and professional, and people really like her. If Nakamura is more of a jerk to her, instead of wink, nod, joke, I'm funny, making you laugh and frustrating you a little bit, like if he actually is just kind of a prick to her, I think you can get some heel heat on him. Renee's a perfect person to play off of. It doesn't work with a lot of other interviewers, but that can work. With him, it's just have a little bit more of a be more of a prick and less clever and funny. But yeah, I mean, even near the end of the match when they were like just exchanging elbows to the head and Nakamura was on wobbly legs and then kind of collapsed and then wrapped his arms around AJ just trying to stay up. Like I showed that at development, in NXT, like to guys in the back, like this is, I mean, there's so many like little things. Even when I noticed when Nakamura threw AJ out of the ring into the timekeeper's area, when he went to grab him, and threw him into the ring, he did it just like, it was urgent and he did it with force and it looked like his strength did it. He didn't make it look like AJ was helping. He didn't take his time to catch his breath. Like there's a real deliberateness to both AJ and Nakamura. That is that chemistry that I think fans who saw their New Japan match, they want to see that chemistry in WWE again. And I don't think we've seen the best we're going to see from them, but man, this 20 minutes was the biggest sample we had yet, after definitely a letdown at Mania.
And if you think about the body of the match, there's some nice bumps, but there was nothing crazy being done. It was just great storytelling, a great physicality, very good intensity. And two guys just out there do it. When you think pro wrestling, this match falls into that. Or if you want to call it sports entertainment, it was very entertaining in the right way. And matches presented like this, and with the competitive instinct that both these guys, or spirit that both these guys brought to this match, that's what the business is based on. And so, just props to these guys for, like I said, a lot of people didn't like the finish. I popped for it. We'll see where they go from here. And I just think AJ Styles, after years of paying dues, for the last few years he's been on top in the WWE. He's not the biggest guy in the world, but I love to watch that guy work.
Yes, I do too.
Hey, man, let's talk about The Miz and Seth Rollins, because these guys, that damn Miz, he's so entertaining, and Seth Rollins got himself back on a roll, and these guys tore the house down. I think I probably liked AJ Shinsuke a little bit more than this match, but this was an outstanding match between these two guys.
I think any 3-minute snippet of AJ Nakamura was better than any 3-minute snippet of Seth Miz, but I like Seth Miz more overall. It had a finish that, and again, you made a good.
The finish is what put that over the edge, because the match was a good match. The match was a solid match, and there was some good stuff in there, but the finish is what made that match.
Yeah. Well,
go ahead.
Yeah, talk. No, I want to. What did you like about? Lay out what you liked about the finish in particular that make the match. I want to hear your take on that.
Oh man, because Jesus Christ, what was the finish? It was just out of the blue. It was the curb stomp?
Yeah, the crowd. I mean, I don't think the crowd. Well, I shouldn't say that the crowd wasn't expecting it. But they went into several pin attempts and reversals, and then Seth just hits the stomp, which he had teased a couple times. And the crowd, it just worked. It was like to me, I like a finish when the finish could have happened, a few times before that. And maybe when that pin was being counted, fans thought maybe there'll be a pin after this too. It's the decisive move for Seth, but WWE has, perhaps to a fault at sometimes, but the end result I think is mostly positive, taught fans, if you see a finisher, it doesn't necessarily mean the match is over. So you can still be on edge as the ref is about to hit 3. And this was, I think, a payoff for that, where the fans popped for it. The guy they wanted to win won. It was a climax of a match, but they didn't know for sure it was the end. It wasn't like after the obligatory interference where now the finish is coming. So, I liked it because you didn't know it was going to be the finish, but you were ready and satisfied that it was.
I was ready for it to be the finish. I just knew it was the finish. And because, like you said, they had done the sequences, a couple of kickouts, and then wham, that was such an explanation mark of a finish. And just, the 1, 2, 3, great cadence by the ref, done deal. So it was high impact. Just the timing was there. They put in the work. They had a great match. Good stuff by both guys. And just the way the finish happened for me, I knew that was it. When it was confirmed by the referee's 3 count that was it, I popped because if he'd have kicked out of that, I'd have said, really?
And what kind of made me, I think, a little touch that made it less obvious to me is that Seth was struggling to make the cover because his knee hurt. So usually when you're slow to make the cover, that's a hint that, you're buying. Well, the wrestler on his back is going to kick out, and the announcers go, if Seth could have just made the cover quicker, he had Miz, and then you go into another couple sequences. So that was a nice touch. But if you take the isolated crowd response to that finish, and WWE did a great crowd shot after that, and you compare it to the 2 main event finishes, like that's the chills and the adrenaline rush and the pop that every promoter and every wrestler, I think, is looking for, is what they got there. A crowd that was happy with the finish. They respect both wrestlers. They love the match, but the guy who won is who they wanted to win. And it's the smiles and the excitement in that crowd on that crowd shot is what you look for and what you aim for. Now, that doesn't mean you give it to people all the time. You have to have fans disappointed and frustrated at times. I mean, you can't just give them the finish they want all the time. That's crazy. But, this is the peak moment, and I think both guys should be super proud. And, you said Seth has found his lane. We've talked about him before, and, who is Seth Rollins and all of that. He's overcome the damage of the booking of that, first 6 or so months after we came back 2 years ago at Extreme Rules, where the crowd was ready to embrace him as a babyface. He's overcome that. And he is, red hot right now with the fans who are buying tickets.
He is, and I'm happy for him, to come back from the knee injury, and then things go kind of south for him, and then he gets back on a roll. One thing, a critique, sometimes he relies on, like high spot type sequences for his comeback. Sometimes I want to see him use a few more right hands or a little bit more just straight up, offense, rather than high spots. But, that's kind of like who and what does. He is. So, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm not telling him to be AJ, but sometimes, as that babyface, you just got to use good old-fashioned, knuckles and feet or just strikes, stomps, whatever it takes. If he can keep working his way around it, more power to him. But, just sometimes when you're using those kind of high spots as comebacks, is like, man, I really want to see Miz have his ass handed to him a little bit more. And again, they built it perfectly. They paid it off perfectly. So it was all fine and dandy. That's just like a light note that I would say with respect to Seth Rollins. But I'm super glad that the guy is on a roll, healthy and doing great. And on the other side of that, the Miz has been fantastic, highly entertaining. The loss didn't hurt him one single bit.
No. And the fact that they're on separate rosters makes that just kind of decisive finish all the better. It's just that was the blow off, start the show off with a clean, decisive finish. And I think Miz is just, he is moving himself to another level. As in terms of the perception, like the question with him is, can he be part of a match that, surpasses that kind of 3 1/4 threshold that he would kind of get to pretty routinely? And would he be part of something that felt epic, that felt like a fight, that felt like it was all out? And yes, a match of the year contender. Has that ever happened with Miz? And he felt every bit the half of this match. Like, this wasn't a 90-10, 70-30 thing. Like, I think Seth would agree. This was a match where Miz was as much a reason that this was as good as it was as Seth. And I don't know how often that's happened when Miz has had some of his better matches. So he's at another level now, I think, as a worker.
Yeah, his work has improved, definitely. And he was a sound worker to begin with. But just to me, his ability on the microphone, and because his character is so strong, you know who and what he is. And he's just that arrogant guy from, playing the Hollywood thing. But yeah, his character, The Miz, he has a strong presence when he goes out there because, you're not wondering, okay, well, let's go into the next match. Let's talk about Daniel Bryan and Big Cass, because when I say Big Cass, just to make my point about The Miz is this cocky, arrogant asshole who's going to just, talk, and then, they'll have a match. So I know who and what he is. So I'm trying to give you, that when The Miz goes in there, mechanically he can do everything just fine. But it's the fact that he has such a strong character really helps his matches out. So that's the compliment that I'm trying, but having a struggle giving The Miz a compliment.
Well, I think Miz felt like he was the edges were rounded, like things were smooth, but not kind of high impact and just kind of that he could go into kind of street fight mode, and he looked like he was performing a match sometimes, and I think he's gotten past. Yeah.
All right, let's take a quick pause for the calls and give big ups to TrueCar. Here's some useful car tips you might not be aware of. Putting your floor mat under your tires in the winter can help get your car out of the snow. Removing excess weight from your car will improve gas mileage. Keeping a Dixie cup of water in your car to put your cigarettes in is a better option than throwing them out the window. Ready for one more tip you might not know about? TrueCar also helps people get used cars. That's right, TrueCar ain't just for buying new cars. With their certified dealer network and nationwide inventory of nearly 1 million used cars, you'll enjoy real pricing on actual inventory and a simpler buying experience, whether you buy new or used. And with TrueCar, users can see what others paid, so they know if they're getting a good deal before buying. They're also more likely to enjoy a faster buying experience by connecting with TrueCar certified dealers. When you're ready to buy a new or used car, check out TrueCar and enjoy a more confident car buying experience. Some features not available in all states. You're also going to need car insurance for that new vehicle. Go to geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. That's right. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance at geico.com. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today. All right, sports fans, listen up. Check out Eyes on Sports with Susie Schuster and Rich Eisen every Wednesday on PodcastOne Sportsnet. The Emmy-nominated sportscaster and her equally impressive husband examine the latest stories in sports from the eyes of both professionals and parents. Check out Eyes on Sports at PodcastOne Sportsnet and Apple Podcast. Also, remember to rate and review. We always appreciate your feedback. All right, before we get to the rest of my conversation with Wade Keller about Backlash, guess what? Mother's Day is this weekend, and if all you got planned is a fancy text message with a bunch of emojis, you need to go back to the drawing board ASAP. Do it right this year and celebrate Mom with this special limited-time offer from 1-800-Flowers.com. Right now, 1-800-Flowers will give you 24 multicolored roses and a free vase for only $29.99. Multicolored roses are the perfect way to surprise all of the moms in your life. Wife, aunt, sister, hell, get Grandma some flowers. Grandma's awesome. Roses from 1-800-Flowers are picked from the best farms and shipped overnight to ensure freshness. Just pick your delivery date, and 1-800-Flowers will handle the rest. To order 24 stunning multicolored roses and a free vase for only $29.99, go to 1-800-Flowers.com. Click the radio icon and enter code Austin. One more time, go to 1-800-Flowers.com. Click the radio icon and enter code Austin for 24 stunning multicolored roses and a free vase for only $29.99. And that's the bottom line for Mother's Day, because I said so.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
All right, I'm going to let you take the floor on this. Daniel Bryan versus Big Cass.
Well, I mean, Daniel Bryan's back. The crowd is excited to see him, and they put him initially in a feud with a guy who is a big guy that Vince McMahon has high hopes for. But also, thankfully, we learned at the end, somebody who he's willing to have Daniel Bryan beat. And so we get a mid-card match on Daniel Bryan's first singles pay-per-view match back against a guy also fresh back from an injury. That seems like the goal is to elevate Cass, but also establish Bryan is still better than him. And I think it worked on that level, and then Cass got his heat back in the end. all that said, I don't think Cass was anything better than is okay. And when that's the other half of a Daniel Bryan match, what that says is you got a long way to go. And I think that what we learned in this 8 minutes is Cass has a long way to go. And that if this is an introductory feud for Bryan to win decisively, then that's fine. And then I assume maybe Miz comes after that. But Cass has, I think, a long way to go. So that's my kind of short summation of this. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Cass does have a ways to go, but this was kind of a deal where, Cass is an athletic big guy, but he's a big guy nonetheless. And you have Daniel Bryan, who probably is, like a true cruiserweight. But, Daniel Bryan can work his ass off. Everybody knows that. And I just think there was just probably both guys are very good friends, but from a chemistry standpoint, or maybe just the way the match was laid out, it didn't flow that well.
Was Cass trying to play to the crowd too much as a heel? Like, I felt like in his mind, the incantation, if that's the right word, maybe I got that wrong, that he kept telling himself is work the crowd, work the crowd, work the crowd. Like that was the thing he was trying to remember to do. And it seemed like maybe he overdid it and that took some of the flow away.
Yeah, and maybe he was trying too hard in that respect. Maybe it was in his head too much and not focused on the fact, hey man, I've got Daniel Bryan in here. The crowd loves him. Let's rock this thing. And maybe this is hindsight being 2020 or rebooking a match. Hey man, let's rock and roll this thing for a couple of minutes. I'll do some things that backfire on me. Bam, bam, bam. Almost get your submission. Let me take over. A little bit of heat, and then, or however you go into the finish. I mean, the finish was kind of funky.
I'm trying to remember the finish. That's where.
Because they're kind of in a prone position, and all of a sudden, Daniel starts, peeling that arm around. He pulls that arm down.
Oh, yeah.
And ends up in that submission. I mean, with the size difference, and then all of a sudden there's a tap. I was like, man, it was a little weird.
Well, and is the idea just get over that Daniel Bryan can take bigger opponents down? With a mat hold, like the high kick, and then just take him down and wrap him up and get the tap. Because I will say Daniel Bryan's line on SmackDown this week was it was a catchy phrase that said, the bigger they are, the harder I make them tap, or I take big guys down and I make them tap. So that was sort of like. That seemed to be a talking point coming out of the match. I looked this up. He said that he will continue to prove the bigger they are, the faster they tap. So now that might have been something he and the writers came up with based on the finish, or the finish might have been designed around that being something that he's saying. And he told Jericho this week that he wants, he still has an eye on a Brock Lesnar match like that. He wants that. That's still in his sights, and he wants to, put on a little more weight that he lost during his time off, and hopefully, if that's in the cards, he wants that to happen. So if this feud is set up to say, all right, let's give Cass some good experience against a good guy, but give Bryan the win, and start this idea that the bigger they are, the faster they tap. Maybe this serves a purpose as an early chapter in that story, but I'm not convinced they're building Bryan up to face Brock. But it would be a hell of a payoff.
That match would be scary because I was watching this match and, I was thinking that, Daniel Bryan's going to kind of change his style due to, the past history he's had with his brain or the concussions. Like I had a neck problem. I had to adjust my style because of that problem. So whatever specifically was Daniel Bryan's problem, and do you think he's adjusted his style at all?
Good question. He's talked about how, he's watching like Lucha and trying to see what they do to not land hard. And he said that, he took the Kevin Owens bump on the ring apron and like the first angle back. And he's like, well, if you're clear, and his line was, if you're cleared, you're cleared. And I get that mentality. I respect it. It's like that, NBA players are told that all the time. We're not going to clear you unless your knee is fine. So don't favor your knee or you'll hurt the other knee, or something else will go wrong. Favoring one part of your body can lead to injuries elsewhere. And he was just like, I just took that to heart and I just went out and I'm cleared, so I'm not going to hold back. And Kevin's never hurt anybody with that move. But that's the type of move for somebody with a history of neck problems and concussion issues. They're like, God, if a little thing goes wrong, all this was for naught. And, he's getting checked out by doctors after every single one of his matches. He's going right to the training room, right to the medic to be evaluated. That's part of the deal. And so I haven't seen him adjust his style yet. Now, we don't have a huge body of work. He had kind of a gimmicky match at Mania. And Big Cass, and then last night a surprising loss to Rusev, or on Tuesday night, a surprising loss to Rusev in the SmackDown main event. But they were playing up that the post-match beating by Cass might have been the reason for that he was still smarting from that. But no, to answer your question directly, I haven't seen him change his style. Now, maybe he has, and he succeeded in me not noticing. But it seems like he's just going all out. I haven't seen a diving top rope headbutt yet, which is good. I'm not sure that's the worst move he ever did, but I think it's on the list of moves he shouldn't be doing.
Some of those times, though, when I see him take those really hard flatbacks, I mean, me, because of my neck issues, I'm like, Jesus Christ, man. I'm watching his matches, and I love Daniel Bryan. So when I'm watching his matches, I'm like, dude, don't hurt yourself here, man. So I'm trying to watch his match and totally enjoy it, but I'm also worried about the guy's safety because I kind of been in the same territory.
Like he did the leaping drop kick off the middle or top rope and then landed on his back. Is that better or worse than a flat back?
You got me. I just, it looked a little rough.
Yeah, and I just don't know.
He took a power bomb as well, didn't he?
Yeah,
Or he took something, and then he kept up out of something. But anyway, I can't remember the match verbatim because it's been a couple of days ago. But it was okay match. I didn't think they clicked as much as they could have, and maybe again going back to like I said about one of the other matches, maybe just a little bit of back and forth before you settle in. We know that Big Cass is a bigger guy. Let him get his shit in. Let him slip on a banana peel. Boom. Here comes Daniel Bryan, and bam, a quick tap. Because Daniel's going over. If Big Cass is out there, he's the bigger guy. They started off and get the fans involved, and then Big Cass goes into heat mode, and then boom, Daniel Bryan pulls something out of his ass, and there slaps on that submission, and there's a tap. To me, that's a stronger win. But nonetheless, let's move on because we've been talking a long time. Go ahead.
Just real quick on Bryan too. Like one thing he did in the match, because it was a big move. It was a big clothesline by Cass. And Bryan took a flip bump, and I remember kind of cringing, oh God. But he twisted and landed on his shoulder and rolled onto his side, as opposed to landing on the back of his neck. So if you're when you said, you want to enjoy the match, I remember watching at that spot going, I want to enjoy this, but now I'm worried about the flip bump. But he did land on kind of his shoulder and turn as he fell, and it was almost like kind of a judo landing. So maybe that's an example of him being more conscious of, cutting them down a little bit. I hope so. But you're right. They have, even at the end of SmackDown this week, he's sitting on the ring apron looking, dejected and dismayed and hurt. And almost every match and everything that Bryan has done so far since his return seems like they're kind of playing off of our emotions, being worried for him. And at some point, I think somewhat soon, you want to just see the old Bryan be happy and successful and not look like he's headed for the hospital.
After a hard-fought win, you're going to kind of be selling and registering. But, you don't want to look like you've come out of World War III every single time, right after you come back. And people, want to get behind your cause and they want to support you because they love you so much, but also they're so concerned about you. You want to really kind of save that for your big-time program when you really want to be at jeopardy. Because right now, you can't be bulletproof because you're working against a big guy, but you want to be kind of strong because you're making your comeback. You're trying to reestablish that fan base, and he's done a good job of connecting, and there's still a little bit more work to be done. He's winning, and like I said, he took the loss, but don't make him look too tortured all of the time, or exactly. To me, it will expose or present maybe that there's a weakness here. And we need to be aware of that. So anyway, that's just me booking in my head. Talk about Bobby Lashley and Braun Strowman versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens.
I'm still waiting to figure out, who Bobby Lashley is and what their ultimate goal in terms, or if they have any ultimate goal in terms of how they're going to present him. Because it seemed like here he's sort of like a big buddy of Braun who they've never established have any chemistry. And he's just there to work, I think, the majority of the match, and then eventually hot take out to Braun for the big pop. I'm not sure that's how I'd be introducing Lashley into the mix at this point.
Man, when I was watching the match, and the same thing, kind of along what you just said, I was thinking, okay, all of a sudden Braun gets in and they cut him off. Okay, so I'm thinking, okay, they're going to shine up Bobby, and they're going to get heat on Braun, and then, Bobby's going to make the comeback. And, they continue to tell more of the story. Obviously, Bobby got the rub here. It's good to see Bobby back. Good dude, solid worker, looks like $1 million. Seems to be a little preoccupied with the headband. For some reason, I don't know what that is, but it's almost like a focal point. You've got the best physique in the business, and the focus is this headband, and it magically ends up back on his head at the end of the match. But the match was, the match was what it was. I enjoyed the hell out of Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens, though, and I'm so happy to see that Sami Zayn, after all these years, and going back to the Shinsuke match, where I thought Shinsuke should have took more of that match, to see the character development that Sami Zayn has showed, and as great of a worker as he is, now to have a stronger character to work off of, I love it, because he's a guy that's paid a lot of dues, put in a lot of time, had a lot of matches, hell of a worker. And now he has a stronger character, just like I was talking about The Miz earlier. I get more of a sense of who and what and why Sami Zayn is who he is. And his chemistry with Kevin Owens is tremendous. Obviously, they go way back to the indie scene, and they're very good friends forever. The match, as far as the match, not the greatest thing in the world, but coming out of the match with what those two guys were doing, I enjoyed the shit out of the end of the match.
Well, and like we talk about Roman Reigns and just being unleashed if he went heel, and obviously Sami and Roman are about as opposite as two personalities get. Let's be honest. But when you see Sami just delighting in hiding in the ropes and smiling because, Bobby, you can't touch me, I'm in the ropes, and I know you're a rule follower, like the delight that he has in taking advantage every loophole he can it's great heat. Now, that did not stop fans on Monday night during a triple threat with Sami and Finn Balor and Roman Reigns. Winner gets Money in the Bank. There's a point late in the match where Sami and Balor start just stomping a mud hole into Roman Reigns in the middle of the ring, and the crowd erupts in yes chants. It was a remarkable moment. Oh, I mean, with everything that happened the 3 days, Backlash, Raw, SmackDown, that was the moment of that 72-hour period. It was unbelievable. The passion in Uniondale for Reigns getting stomped in the yes chant. I mean, yeah, you laugh, but it's symbolic of what's so wrong. But anyway, get back to, so I'm just saying, like, I think Roman would be unleashed in the way that Sami has been, where there's just this joy. Like, the thing about Roman is there's not a joy to anything he's doing right now. Like, I think even heels have to take some joy in, like Shinsuke, maybe to an extreme degree, but there's some joy in his showing up for work and doing what he does. Sami, there's joy. Braun, there's joy. They're just like, you want to get a sense, people want to be there to accomplish certain goals. And it does seem like Roman's kind of clocking in because he has to, and he's suffering through it. That's what's fun about Sami, is he kind of got in that zone for a while where he seemed a little lost, or felt underutilized. What can I do to turn things around? And he and KO have great chemistry, and they're just great opponents for Braun. Kevin Owens' bumps at ringside when Braun is charging around the ring and tackling him is one of the best things in wrestling right now.
What I'm thinking about when I'm watching this match, and I was watching, going back to, who was it? Jesus Christ, was that WrestleMania 34 when Braun Strowman picked Nicholas, the kid, to go against the tag champs, Cesaro and Sheamus, right?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if they were trying to humanize Braun Strowman. Here comes this guy. He's a former strong man, looks like $1 million. He can talk. He has a charisma about him. He can work. And I've been a fan for a couple of years now. Clearly, it's a tag match, and they're trying to give Bobby a rub here. And they do. But you've got to be careful with what you do with Braun Strowman. If you try to spread him too thin towards the end of the match, well, it was the end of the match, and after it was all over, they're kind of standing there with their arms raised up, and it almost looked like Braun looked over like he was going to give Bobby like a knuckle bump or whatever, kind of put him over, and he was kind of just looking at it. If you rewatch it, and he's given Bobby that look like, hey man, let's do the knuckle thing, or I'm trying to put you over here. It's like, dude, you're alpha. If you don't go out there and work or act alpha every time you get in the ring, if you play beta or second to anybody, you're going to start losing your mystique or power or whatever. So I think Braun's got to be careful about that. And I don't want to see Braun Strowman do anything funny. And the thing with the Nicholas kid, a great spot for the kid. Who would want to go out there with a WWE superstar and do something that they did? But with respect to booking Braun, they're calling him a monster among men and get these hands on you and all this other stuff. He's a little bit like Stone Cold. He's a lot like Braun Strowman. And I don't need to see a 6'8", 6'9", 330-pound guy make me laugh, make me smile, bring any warmth to my body. I want to see him go out there and destroy and crush people because he's capable of doing it and because his desire to hold a gold belt is so great. That's what drives him and spurs him on. He's been a competitor his whole life. So I think, you've got to book him as a power guy. Now certainly, you've got these monsters. Well, we just had the Andre the Giant special. But he's going to have, times where, he has an Achilles heel or he has an injury or something like that. But, you can spread that guy around. But if you're still, Braun Strowman, as well as he's done over the past few years, still has a ways to go. And he's not bulletproof. If you start talking that kid up, you're going to kill him. You're going to diminish him. I don't think you're going to kill him because I think he's one of the top guys on the roster. Do you follow what I'm saying, or do you agree, or just completely disagree with anything I've said?
No, I totally agree. I mean, I think there is there's a lane that he is best in, and if they there was a skit several weeks back now where he was countering Elias and making some playing an instrument. It was giant cello to offset the guitars. My guitar's bigger than yours, and it was a comedy segment, and they haven't gotten back to it. And I'm glad that they haven't. But do you think that he struck the right tone at Backlash, and you were referring to the WrestleMania match that was too light in comedy, or do you think he actually hit the wrong tone on Sunday?
No, I'm just saying it looked like he was trying, consciously, not subconsciously. He was consciously trying to give Bobby that rub at the end. And it's like, okay, dude, you're two macho big ass dudes, and Bobby never looked his way. Bobby's taking care of Bobby. Well, Braun's got to take care of Braun. So. Just don't act like you're, there just to rub somebody. That guy was lucky to be with you. That's the way you've got to look at it. You don't want to stick it up his ass. I mean, you're not trying to do that, because I've had times where guys were giving me rubs and I was giving them rubs. But just from a perception standpoint, I saw it looked like he was trying to buddy up to him. And I'm thinking, dude, you don't buddy up to anybody. It's one thing to be booked in a match with a guy and work with him as a teammate. But when it's all said and done, your business is to go out there and take care of Braun. It's a very fine thing that if anybody else didn't see it, I did, and I'm very leery of things like that.
And I think Braun's facial expressions when he is serious, that's where the money is. And of course, the money is, if they turn Roman Reigns heel and then you unleash Braun on him. I think that's a great match. If let's say Vince is sitting at a meeting, he goes, all right, we're gonna do it. Some of you suggested maybe I do this. I'm going to do it. We're going to turn Roman heel. But who should we go all in with, Seth or Braun on the Raw brand as a lead babyface? Are the things you've said about Braun, does that make you say, oh, yeah, go with Seth. He's red hot right now. Ride that. Or as long as you do keep Braun in the right lane and keep him serious and on a mission, do you think Braun is someone who's got enough Stone Cold in the size? He's a once-in-a-generation type special performer. I loved your line. There's a little Stone Cold and a lot of Braun. In Braun, do you just go, I don't know if it'll last 8 years, but let's go with this now because we know in 18 months Seth will still be here? Well,
that's a good question. And, by the same token, in 18 months, Seth has to stay healthy. So I think that's a great question. I'm not really prepared just to throw out an answer because, man, I think it's a 50-50 call.
Yeah, it's tough. That's been a discussion the last few weeks. Braun's hot. He's been hot for, increasingly so for about a year. And Seth, just in the last couple of months, just hit this new plateau. So it's like, wow, they got two. Because 6 months ago, you'd have said, well, if not Reigns, then who? And it was too soon to go with Braun, and Seth was just another guy. Now, right. You actually can have a discussion that if that was the reason not to turn Reigns, and some people, that was it. If not him, then who? And, we got AJ on SmackDown. That's enough. Bryan was still hurt, and I don't think Bryan's a guy you'd go with right now in that spot, unless he signs. Kevin Owens just signed for 5 more years. If Bryan signs for 5 more years, maybe you shift him to Raw and just go all in with him. But then you get the optic aspect of it, where Vince wants someone who looks the part. Well, Seth and Braun both look the part enough. The excuses are gone, even through, I think, the Vince lens. You got 2 good choices that probably will work better than Reigns staying the course. So yeah, it's a good problem to have, or it's a good choice to have now.
Yeah, well, and props to Seth Rollins for putting himself in that spot. And if they're having that conversation, that's a good conversation to have, because you would have been having that conversation a couple of months ago. Hey, dude, let's move on to Carmella versus Charlotte. A lot of people didn't like this match. And I'm not going to say it was a technical wonder, because it wasn't. But there was just things about Carmella. She was just screaming, and I got to, because she was just, her character is very interesting. And when she was getting heat on Charlotte, and I like Charlotte better as a heel, but she's a wonderful babyface, and she's a damn good worker, and she's only really going to get better. And Carmella is not quite in the same league with her by any stretch. But the way the match was structured, just Carmella's aggressive nature, some of the punches or strikes or claws or slaps, whatever you'd call them, just some of the beatdowns she was putting on Charlotte, I became so entertained by it. I said, man, she's really, giving her hell. And as a heel, that's what you want your heel to do. So I thought, yeah, it wasn't the smoothest match I'd ever seen. The finish was effective. I mean, it was interesting and effective. And obviously Charlotte is the more talented performer. But just due to the character work that Carmella did, I don't think anybody give this thing, if you're going to rate it, it's not going to be an all-time classic by any stretch. No. But I liked what Carmella did so much, just as far as working from a character standpoint and her aggressive nature, and she's over the top with her mannerisms. I enjoyed the match.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it as much as you did. I thought I'm that's not even disagreeing with what you liked about it, but I saw more the clunkiness, and that took me out of it. I really did like Carmella. Just being so obnoxious and right. Abrasive, and like even when she was just like she's punching Charlotte at one point, and then Charlotte rolls over and gives up her back to get relief from the punches, and Carmella just like has more in her, so she starts kind of slapping her. It doesn't even hurt; it's just adding almost literally adding insult to injury at that point. Right. And anytime she was in control, you just resented it, and that's not something everybody has, and I think that's something to build on. But I just thought that this had more negatives in terms of the flow of the match. I thought they needlessly went to pretty long chin lock in the middle of the match where Carmella did a little too much talking. I didn't think Charlotte's comeback had the punch to it and the pace to it that I think worked the crowd into a frenzy. There was something about the pace of the comeback that I think left the crowd sitting, and the crowd was sitting. They weren't reacting to it. And I think if they had a better match and paced it a little better, even if it meant it was a little shorter, I think they would have had the crowd more. So I wasn't in the same place you were. I was hoping for more, and it was kind of on the low, but I wasn't like thinking it's going to be awful, but I was hoping for more, and it kind of was on the lower end of what I feared in terms of some of the drawbacks.
Well, because I'd never seen Carmella work too many matches at all, because I DVR the show, you watch every show, and so I watched this match, and obviously, they did what she could do, and Charlotte is a much more accomplished hand, and Jesus Christ, that match at WrestleMania 34 with Asuka was just off the charts, in my opinion, and one of her best outings, and it was very physical, very intense. This was in a whole different light. And I guess it's not even the match that I'm talking about is probably playing to Carmella's strengths as a character that won me over. So and like I said when I first started, it wasn't a technical wonder by any stretch. And Charlotte, for Carmella to get the win over Charlotte, it's going to be interesting to see how long they keep that belt on her, because you got away with one. But, I don't see, me personally, and this is with respect to Carmella because I love her character, but I don't see her as being the champion for very long due to the limited work.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think everybody was kind of stunned by Charlotte ending Asuka's streak and then doing a clean job, of all people, to Carmella, who won the belt on a Money in the Bank, kind of fluke technicality, and hadn't worked singles matches in a while, and didn't have that credible foundation of, well, she's someone who Charlotte should take seriously. So for her to win, and to me, it's a clean win. If you go for a moonsault and you land on your knee and tweak it, and your opponent rolls you up, That's a clean win. Like you moved out of the way of a move. There's no asterisk there. Carmella beat Charlotte clean. So I thought, if you're going to end the streak and build up presumably Charlotte for a match with Rousey someday, having her lose in under 10 minutes to Carmella coming off the Asuka win, it's puzzling. I'm not quite sure what to think of it.
I agree with you on that. I wasn't looking at the bigger picture. I was looking strictly at this match, but I agree with you 100% on that, because when you have a ball buster like she did with Asuka, and that was a damn good match, and it was so physical, so intense, and then she goes down clean. I mean, she goes for the gimmick, was moonsault, whatever it was, crimps her knee, boom, roll up, 1, 2, 3. Did the win really hurt Charlotte? No, not in today's landscape and the way it happened. But if you did that to her again, yeah, it would.
Yeah, and when you look at the women depth chart post Superstar Shakeup, the heel lineup for SmackDown is Carmella, Peyton Royce, and Billie Kay. And Peyton's good, but they're new. And then Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose, who were the sidekicks to Paige in Absolution before Paige had to retire. That's it. So given how the roster shook out, where it is right now, you need Carmella to have some credibility. And I think that's why this finish happened. The problem is, why did you do a shakeup and be in a position where you don't have any credible heels who are established yet? And the number 2 heel is Peyton Royce, who's brand new and hasn't really established herself with a larger audience. So I think they might have felt like they needed to do it in order to get through the next few months. But it does take some of the shine off Charlotte's win over Asuka. And I think, in the long run, does it matter, especially if Charlotte's a heel against Rousey? And I don't know how that will work out. But if Charlotte turns heel, then this will be forgotten about. If she stays face, I do think it sticks a little bit that she's not this unbeatable, dominant SmackDown wrestler who fans just can't wait to see take on Rousey, because nobody's been able to solve the Charlotte puzzle.
I'm a huge Charlotte fan, but I just prefer her as a heel, bottom line. And just going back to this match before we move on, props to Carmella. As green as she is, and she's been around, but she's not at Charlotte's level. But just the fact that she was all in with her character, I enjoyed that part of the match, and I enjoyed the match for what it was. And she gets a win. We'll see where they go from here. And that's part of, I get to finally watch as a fan and get to see where the story goes from here. So I'm not the bitter, grizzled veteran. It shocked me. And so I want to see where they go from here. So I'm hooked. Nia Jax versus Alexa Bliss. Man, this was a little bit clunky. If you thought that the Charlotte Carmella match was clunky, this was clunkier than that. And I like both ladies, but the match didn't work at any level for me.
The challenge they had here, I want to establish early on, they booked themselves into this, but you have a really small, at a core level, the hardcore fans, a heel who fans like, because, Bliss is showing who she is, in pretty prominent social media and interviews, is really nice person who the fans relate to. And they have her being the undersized bully against Nia Jax, who's also, by the way, shown herself to be really nice and likable on social media. And so you have wrestlers who, storyline wise, Bliss is the bully who's making jokes at Jax's expense about her weight and her eating habits. And being a hypocrite. And she's delightful in making her case, but also nasty. That's just the way she is. So then she's the biggest size differential on this entire roster is Bliss and Jax, but you have Jax as the babyface and Bliss as a heel. That's a huge challenge. I thought, given that challenge, that there were that they did a decent but not great job having it be explained why Bliss was able to get the advantages that she did. I thought Monday on Raw, Kevin Owens and Braun Strowman had a match that was really good, where there was great moments where he understood why Owens was getting sustained offense in against Braun, like a tornado DDT off the ringside barrier. It's like, okay, now I understand why Braun is hurt and KO's going after his knees. I thought this tried to do the same thing. I thought it succeeded a little bit more than I'm sensing you did but I also went in going, this is a really tough spot they put both women in, because really the roles should be reversed. The size difference, it's so hard to tell that story when, I think it's probably a 2-to-1 weight ratio here in size ratio. I wrote that it had its clunky moments, but it didn't take completely away from the match, because I expected a little more clunkiness because of the size difference compared to Carmella Charlotte.
I would have started off House of Fire, Nia Jax in total control and almost getting wins several times. But Alexa, due to her resilience and the fact that she's a scrapper and a former champion, is able to always kick out. And then, have Nia do something or Alexa do something underhanded to get on top. But just, the couple times when she was on her back and, going for the sleeper, she kept getting tossed around. The timing on those bills, she wasn't really getting up under enough and kind of rushing the throws, and there wasn't crisp landings. Just not great. All of a sudden there's that interview after the match is over, and Alexa Bliss, is kind of down there on the apron. She's got this look on her face. She just lost, and now Nia's a champion, and she goes on the anti-bullying speech, and I was like, I don't know, man. It just that seemed kind of awkward for me, right there.
Oh, that was really awkward. Oh yeah. I mean, to end with, be a star. This is me. You be who you are. Be a star. Remember, in the end, a bully always gets their ass kicked. Like, I can imagine that on a poster in schools.
But that's not always the case.
No. But it's like the wording of it. You're trying to be all like, I sort of feel like she improvised that line, and so I hate to be critical of things sounding really scripted. Maybe it was scripted. I don't know. But it came across like a corporate after-school special. I wanted the little rainbow and the stars, like NBC, now you know. Afterwards, yeah, it was corny, and she didn't deliver it well. But the story of this match was, you're not alone. It's okay to be different. Don't be ordinary. Be extraordinary. I like that message, and I think it's good.
Well, it's a great message, but it's at the time and the place for that message.
I don't think so.
Exactly. I mean, this is about pro wrestling. She just won her first championship, and they put on the soapbox. And it's like, hey, man, if you're going to say anything, be short-winded. Talk about the win, how gratifying it was, and God dang it, she brought out the best in you, but you're the champ now, and you're going to stay the champ for a long time. Bam, leave them on a high, get out.
This is the type of feud, too. If they're going to continue it, you can build up. Let's see what Nia Jax has to say about the win afterwards. And we'll run a correction on you, Steve. Nia went in defending champion.
Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, it doesn't really change what you're saying, but she should still talk about overcoming the bully who's been antagonizing her, who she used to trust and was saying bad, mean things about her behind the scenes and all that. There was a moment, but yeah, I mean, you can. They didn't have anything with them on Raw, so just put that on Raw and put it in a circumstance that maybe is more suitable for that moment. But yeah.
Thanks for correcting me, because I was so used to seeing her walk to that ring with that belt around her waist, I assumed she was still the champion. But I stand corrected. Thank you for that. But, Nia Jax, I think she still has loads of potential. Alexa Bliss is only going to get better. She's already very good as it is, so both women I think are going to go on from this or continue from this feud and have badass matches. But this time, I just think the formula wasn't that great. But they're both better performers than they delivered on this particular night in the squared circle.
And they put them in a tough spot. I mean, they really did. I mean, the size difference is a huge challenge in this circumstance. And, I don't know. I think they're working hard to overcome it, but it's hard to overcome.
It is, especially, if you're somewhat green and they're both still somewhat green. I mean, you can go out there with a veteran and, if I'm working with Andre, hey, it might be good, it might not be, that's just the way those matches go sometimes. And, where it was on the card, what the crowd's expecting. But anyway, nonetheless, Jeff Hardy versus Randy Orton. Go.
This was a match between two popular babyfaces who probably character-wise don't share very much in common, but U.S. title on the line. They have some heels in common. They didn't really, my talking point going into this match is I wish they would have talked about this as more of kind of a dream match we thought we'd never see between two legacy guys who have been around a long time, taking different paths in their career. And it was just sort of put out there. And I thought it was sort of like a good match, 12 minutes. And I thought giving Hardy a clean win over Orton was probably the biggest story of all, just in the sense of, I don't think it was a shot at Orton to try to diminish him, but I think that it was sort of a vote of confidence for Hardy coming back as a singles guy, now actually getting a win over a legacy star who doesn't do a ton of clean jobs in Randy Orton. And I don't think I didn't know what the finish was going to be going into this. I had no idea. I could have easily seen Orton winning. But I thought it was a above average but not great match. And if that was the opener, it would have been a good opener.
The match in itself was fine, but if it had been a little bit more intense, I think it would have been better if they'd have done the exact same thing. A little bit more sense of urgency. I mean, Jesus, it was a U.S. title on the line, right?
Yeah, that was a criticism that Randy was a little too deliberate and methodical. in the pacing, which I think is, I admire Randy because he kind of shows up for work and he's happy being kind of the B- player, and he gets great pops and he's trying to stay healthy, and there's a lot of wear and tear. And maybe I'm more forgiving than I should be, but I think at this place on the card, I don't know, intensity, title on the line, yes, but after what happened in the opener, it was almost like, it's okay, we can have a match between two baby faces who are just trying to out wrestle each other, but there's not like a vicious grudge, because there just wasn't.
I like and respect the hell out of both guys, and it was just, it was mechanically, it was a good match.
There's times you kind of wanted to push the ×2 button on the speed, on the remote.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I agree. But
you ain't got to do anything crazy. Just pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think had they done it, it would have been more on the list of match. I think if the pace of this match had picked up, but it was still 12 minutes and they didn't do anything crazy, I think people would have had a better feeling about this show. I think the feeling was with the women's matches being just sort of there, a hot opener, the Shinsuke AJ match, for better or for worse, people upset about the finish, even though it was really good leading up to it. There just wasn't enough for people to then be forgiving of a lousy main event. And if they were looking back at Orton Hardy being not forgettable, because I think this was forgettable, but a surprisingly good match with that more sense of urgency, I think overall people might have felt better about their WWE Network experience on Sunday night.
Yeah, so what's the lay of the land with respect to where everybody goes from here? Raw, SmackDown, your thoughts on where everybody's going or the general direction of the company?
Well, you got AJ Styles as the champ on SmackDown, and I go back 3 years, and if you would have said, oh yeah, SmackDown's going to have AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan, Jeff Hardy, Samoa Joe, Shinsuke Nakamura, you won't believe what Miz is doing these days. Andrade Cien Almas, who's red hot, coming up from developmental. Oh, and Shelton Benjamin's back and putting in some good matches. I would have been like, yeah, sign me up. I want to watch that show. And so I'm pretty excited for SmackDown. This week they had a good show with some good long matches. I like the mix up of personalities. I think Daniel Bryan, Miz is going to be really fun. I think Samoa Joe is on the verge of being a showcase #1 heel on a brand without any interference, unless Andrade and Zelina just take off, and maybe 6 months from now they have. And Shinsuke is going to be in that mix too. But yeah, I really like the SmackDown lineup, and I think it's aimed to please fans who know the history of these guys and want to see them showcased on national TV. Raw, I'm a little more worried about. The heel depth chart includes Jinder Mahal and Dolph Ziggler and Baron Corbin and Elias. Those are 4 of the top 7 heels. Kevin Owens, Sami, and Drew McIntyre are the top 3 heels in terms of matches I'm excited to see them in, but Sami's not a top guy. Kevin Owens is he's not a top guy either in how they're portraying him. And so Drew better step up. I hope, and I don't mean like he hasn't, but like I'm hoping Drew is a breakout star this year on Raw, because they need some good heels to take on Roman, Braun, Seth, Lashley, and Balor. And so I'm a little more worried about Raw in that respect, because watching cards and shows with Jinder and Ziggler and Corbin and Elias is the bulk of the heel faction, the bulk of the heel roster after you get past Sami and KO being entertaining. That worries me a little. So that's kind of my overview of things. I think Superstar Shakeup was good for both brands, but Raw needs a few more things to go its way. But when Dean Ambrose comes back, that can certainly help Raw. And
2 more things. Did you say that the Miz and Daniel Bryan are going to start working the program?
I think everybody's kind of assuming that's a SummerSlam match.
Oh, that's going to be a really good. That's going to be a really good program, because I think both guys, Daniel Bryan, he's really come around on his promos when he does that, talking smack, whatever the hell it is. He's really come around. And of course, the Miz is lights out on a microphone. And due to the fact that those guys are kind of in the same size ballpark, I think that's going to be a very entertaining program, and I would look forward to seeing that. And then on another note, Elias, I forgot to talk about him on the WWE Network pay-per-view. I don't know what to call him anymore.
They still call him. They still call him pay-per-view.
Okay. So anyway, Elias, very entertaining. Love the guy. Love his shtick. He goes out there, gets all the interrupts, and then there's a big cluster at the end. Okay, and then it's off. Okay, so I like Elias. I love the character. The guy can work. He's got a damn good look. So what do you do with Elias?
That's a good question. I think you have to decide that you want him to be a heel and not comedy relief, and give him a little bit of an edge and take away the crowd going walk with Elias in unison with him. It's so jarring when he insults every city he's in and tells them to put their damn cell phones away and shut their mouths. But the crowd just says, walk with Elias with enthusiasm and a smile. If I'm WWE, if I'm Elias, I don't want that. I mean, it's crowd participation is nice, but you don't have to embrace it every time it happens. And so when I see Elias telling the crowd how to act while he sits on the stump, and I see something that can go beyond sitting on a stool with a guitar. I mean, there's a really good heelish demeanor there. And I think he's shown he's good enough in the ring that you shouldn't just look at him as someone who's going to top out where Damian Sandow did. And Sandow could have been more too, but I don't think that's his ceiling. So get him away, get him past the No Way Jose type stuff and utilize him, because when we look at the heel depth chart, there's a spot to be grabbed as a top 3 heel on the Raw brand if they frame him right and he delivers. I'm high on him, but with some reservations.
I'm high on him. I just think that sometimes when you're out there and you're on a stool and who wants to walk with Elias, or they say it with him, whatever, that's all fine and dandy. But at some point, I think, he's so dry, and some of those throwaway lines that he does are so good. It's like you can't help but like that part of him. But right. By the same token, also when he's catching a little bit of flack from that crowd and he still stays calm and composed, to me, you've got to have a trigger. At some point, something has to piss you off. And I'm not talking about within, the bell-to-bell part of a match inside the ring. From a character standpoint, reacting. And it's not the old put your hands over your ears like a heel would do 30 years ago. That's not what I'm talking about. But, I mean, something, I guess what I'm saying, just a little more range. Because it's a steady state right now with the guy, and I like what I'm seeing, and I see a lot of potential. But twist that dial a little bit. You're already kind of steady state. Not on a 5. Show me that you can go 7, 8, 9, and 8, on occasion 10, and then back down to a 2. You see what I'm saying? Because now you kind of always know what he's throwing fastballs right now. Okay, give me some curves and some changeups. That's what I'm saying.
Well, a Bobby Roode feud with a pretty ice cold babyface character in Bobby Roode, I don't think is going to be great for Elias at this point to get what you're talking out of him. Roode's a veteran and a good hand, and so I mean it's not like, I wouldn't say it's a bad chapter to go through for the Elias character, but that seems to be what they're building right now. By the way, they could also do turn Elias babyface and just ride that out for a while because the crowd kind of tends to like him. And so I think that's a legit option. But I like the idea of Elias, with what you're talking about, in the mix after he wins the feud with Bobby Roode. And I think he should, and they should make him look credible and strong. Then you've got Finn Balor and then Seth Rollins. And I think you could do those two. I think you can, by this fall, have Elias heated up to be challenging Seth Rollins for the IC title, if that's kind of where things are, and have Seth take Elias to the next level. Again, I think Seth should win in the end, but Elias can look like he belongs in the ring with Seth by then. I say at least map that out in pencil and see if you can trace your way there. Maybe a Dean Ambrose feud in the mix too. So that's where I kind of see him as like a third from the top heel, refining some things like you're talking about, where he moves away from the shtick that got him over and the crowd pleasing, chant along stuff, and show some range and some and the ability to kind of carry yourself like you are a top guy. And then who knows a year from now where he is.
But then, and I think, I'm talking about from a character standpoint when he's on a stool as far as those levels. His work in the ring is fine, and he's aggressive, and he's solid. He can change paces. He can do anything that he needs to do. But also from a booking standpoint, when Bobby Lashley came in, all of a sudden, he's got Elias in a vertical suplex for 30 seconds. When Braun needed a guy, there he was with the big ass, bass fiddle, whatever. My fiddle's bigger than yours, whatever it was. So he's kind of been that guy. Okay, he gets throttled a little bit. And it's like, the dude's out there doing his thing, and some guy comes to the ring and gets the best of him. It's like, hey man, I don't want to see everybody get the best of Elias, because as a person who likes the character and because I see some potential in him, he can't always be that guy. If he's always that guy, you're going to kill him off.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where I think Bobby Roode is a good opponent at this stage. And he can win and go who's next, in not exact wording, but move to a higher level and learn from working with Bobby in that exact framework.
Well, they just gave us a go home, Wade.
All right.
I appreciate you joining me on the podcast.
Is it 11:30
A great
PM?
discussion. Dude,
Is it 11:30 p.m.? Are people? I'm sorry. Is it 11:30 p.m.? Are people getting up and leaving? I hope not.
Hey,
Dude, I'm glad you laughed because I talked right over you, so I was hoping that line would work and didn't bomb.
Tell people where they can find you and your show.
All right, thanks. Search Wade Keller in Apple Podcasts or wherever you search for wrestling podcasts. Subscribe to both the Red Show and the Blue Show. 4 shows per week. And check me out on my website, pwtorch.com. Live coverage of Raw, SmackDown, pay-per-views, flashbacks from 5, 10, 15 years ago, too, which is pretty cool. Some great columnists and breaking news. And on social media, it's at the Wade Keller and at pwtorch. Steve, it's great to talk to you again. My therapist would be very happy.
Enjoyed it, Wade.
Thanks.
Are you looking for a champion's insight from a fan's perspective into the world of sports and entertainment?
Then check out In the Key with me, NBA champion BJ Armstrong.
And me, sports analyst Gerald Brown.
Right here on Podcast One. We know the business, and each week we'll chat with celebrity guests and provide an informed discourse on the cultural beats of the moment.
Download new episodes of In the Key every Thursday on PodcastOneSports.com, the Podcast One app, or Apple Podcasts.
All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. It's time to wrap up this podcast and ride off in sunset. Before I do that, I'd like to thank Wade Keller, PW Torch, coming on the show, shooting a breeze with me. It's been a while since I talked to Wade, and I always enjoy just talking about the matches, talking about the program that they're running over there at WWE. Obviously, Wade is way more in tune with the product as he watches every single second of the wrestling sports entertainment program that they provide. I try to watch as much as I can. That's why I always enjoy his opinion. He's been doing this a long time. Just good to share a microphone with him and get his thoughts on everything that's going on. If you haven't seen WWE Backlash yet, check it out on the WWE Network. $9.99 a month. And that's the bottom line. Hey, man, thanks, Wade, for joining me. Before I ride off in the sunset, you can still find my Broken Skull Ranch shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com/Steve Austin. You can find my beer, Broken Skull IPA, at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in California. If you ain't in Cali, check InsideTheCellar.com and see if they ship to your state. If you're looking for a badass pocket knife, I have 2 of them. Cold Steel Broken Skull Knife, Cold Steel Working Man's Knife. You can find them at my new Amazon store. Amazon's got the best price on both knives. Just go to Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin. And I want to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. And you can find all my sponsors at PodcastOne.com. Just click on the Killer Deals button at the top of the page and then click on the Steve Austin Show banner. Folks, I am on social media. I am on Twitter and Instagram at Steve Austin, BSR. Thank you for tuning in. Folks, until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.